If you're thinking of putting a drum winch in your boat, then watch my video and I'll take you through my experience. I bought a Viper drum winch and I fitted it here in the anchor well of my boat. The Viper winch comes as a complete outfit. It includes everything. Rope, chain, hardware, the lot. The only thing that I purchased separately was the wiring loop. The wiring loop is well laid out, clearly labelled and easy to connect up. It took me about 3 days to put the drum winch in, wire it up and have it all operational. After that though, I did spend a little more time on the hatch cover, the deck roller and just getting things tidy the way I wanted them up front here. Fitting a winch is well within the scope of what most people would do with basic skills. So if you want to save yourself a bundle of cash, keep watching. If you put the winch in the anchor well like I did, you'll need to make up something to help support it while you mark up the holes. I just made something out of a piece of timber like this. That's all it is, it's very simple. All I did was make this up to sit in the bottom of the anchor well so that it would take the weight of the anchor winch sitting on there like that while I leveled it and centered it. I cut this piece out too so that I could still see behind it the center line that I drew on the bulkhead. So here it is sitting inside the anchor well, and if I bring the camera down a little bit closer, you can see where I've only just gone around the edge of the bracket with the caulking and around these areas here where I just sealed up the countersunk holes. And if I can get this camera in a little bit deeper, I can show you where I can just put my hand underneath the drum and the fiberglass laminate beneath. If you've got a helm area set up like this and you want to put the switch just to the left, you may need to take your steering wheel off. Now I don't have a steering wheel puller, bearing puller, so the method that I used was, got a knife, put it in behind this plate here and pop that off. That's all it is. Behind that is a nut. I backed that nut off a few millimetres, got some spray lubricant and went in around it. Then grabbed the steering wheel and see if I could pull it towards me. Now it's likely it won't move, So, because there is some end shake in the steering wheel, I got a piece of shim, just a thin piece of metal, and I put it between the steering wheel and this dress plate. And then with a hammer, very carefully tapped away on that stub, and again tried to pull and see if the steering wheel would release, which it didn't. So I then got a heat gun like that and very carefully worked in around this area and warmed it up. At the same time, I tapped away on it with a hammer, and eventually the steering wheel did release. When you get the steering wheel off, leave it off for the entire job, because it makes it much easier afterwards when you're in and around here trying to drag cables around and installing this. The steering wheel comes off quite easily. So that's it. And you can see there was a key in that hub too. So that clears up that area so that I can now remove this, and I'll have this area now to work on. It's time to put the silverware on. I'm going to leave the switch loose for the time being because I want to wire it up, and also too because it has this clip on it, which once it goes into here, it clips into place. There's no screws to attach that. This has a couple of screws and a seal around it. This also has a small seal around it. That's the sandwich plate that came with the unit. It supports the winch from inside the cabin. Above that, I ran the cables from the motor, covered it with a junction box. Where it enters, I used the split flexible conduit that also came with the unit, ran it up underneath there, down through the side pocket, underneath, and then ran it all the way down towards where it enters into the helm position. Just on the right is the up and down switch. You can see the cables are still labelled. Just to the left of that is the circuit breaker, and just above where the EPIRB is, I've put the solenoids. And the power to the unit is supplied via these two cables, which will be tucked up inside the split conduit, up underneath the gunnels, and run to the rear of the boat. It's all finished now, and I'm very happy with the way it turned out. The anchor's on, the chain is now on, and all the ropes loaded onto the drum winch. I took the split bollard off the front, which we'll need to do. In lieu of that, I put a piece of plastic chopping board here on the front. Used the existing screws from this, put them back in, sealed it all up. It also gave me a nice flat surface for the deck roller to sit on. Before I cut the hatch, which you'll need to do, and that is the piece that I took out from the hatch, I made up a template of chipboard just so I know how much I was happy with to take off, and that worked out well. Just use a fine blade on your jigsaw, that's all. When you're ready to put the rope and chain on the winch, roll on almost one layer of rope first on that arbor. Make sure it's tight. Then stop. Mark the rope with something bright. I just used bright pink rod binding thread. That way you know, if you've got that much rope out, that marker will tell you that you're down to the last layer. Have someone at the helm operating the switch. Make sure you've got good communication and don't put your hands in there while that thing is operating. Fairly obvious. Well, that's it. The job's all done and completed. Very happy with the outcome and glad I installed it myself. Just a couple of things to finish up on though. When you load up the rope onto the winch, wear gloves, make sure it goes on evenly and firmly. And when you get to the chain, just check that all the D-shackles and linkages are done up tight. That's very important. When I cut the hatch cover here, I put the jigsaw blade on almost a 45-degree angle and cut inwards. That gave it that beveled edge, and then I finished it off with some gel coat. The deck roller here, as I said before, just sits on some plastic chopping board. I just use stuff like this. You can use whatever you want. Stainless steel, aluminium, suit yourself. Otherwise, good luck.